Hi, you're tuning into AWANI Review with me, Cynthia Ng, and I'm really excited today because we have Dr. Werner Vogels, the Chief Technologist of one of the largest companies in the world, Amazon, joining us today. Werner, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know you have a very busy schedule, so I appreciate you taking the time to have a chat with me.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's been a long history between AWS, which is the cloud computing division of Amazon, and Astro, actually, because I remember, it must have been 10 years ago, that I first visited Malaysia for work, and we very work closely, for example, with Astro on their digital transformation. So I'm very fond memories of being here and with the company.
I'm glad to hear that. So let's kick things off with why you're here this time around, I believe, to attend the KL20 Summit. I think you met many people, VCs, investors, government people. Talk to us about that experience so far, the reason you're here, and how has it been different compared to your last trip to Kuala Lumpur?
Well, I think I think the country has been making significant investments into infrastructure in general, but also in digital infrastructure. So I think digital services are absolutely on the rise here, in not only in Malaysia but Southeast Asia in general. But I think Malaysia is sort of a lighthouse there, because I see a number of the younger businesses, for example, to be more advanced, to have a broader look, or to have a look at solving really hard problems. And based on that, we also decided to build a region here in Malaysia, which is a set of data centers going together such that our customers can actually keep their data here in country, but also can use very low latency to reach their customers in this country. So we're making significant investments in here. And I think in the coming years, in total, we'll be investing something like $6 billion in Malaysia to support the digital infrastructure.
All right.
And we do that because over the years it turned out that some of the Malaysian companies were some of our earliest customers, really advantageous, really looking forward, solving hard problems and using technology to do these kind of things. And that's why I've always been proud to sort of work with these Malaysian companies here.
Based on your observation here on your trip, I know it's a pretty short trip, but have you observed any unique opportunities or challenges for the Malaysian landscape?
Yeah, I think, for example, meeting with the founders of Aerodyne, which is a drone company that actually got founded originally in, I think, 2014, when you guys had a number of natural disasters here, where it was very hard to reach those areas, and they started making use of drones to actually serve people that were in the affected areas. And that was the start of that company, sort of then using those technologies to solve a whole range of different problems. And quite a few of those problems are unique here for the region. For example, they have an agriculture platform where you can use drones to, survey your land, targeting individual plants for feeding or for harvesting and things like that. And or just looking at sort of natural disasters and erosion and things happening that are caused by climate change. And so they have a platform, have become a platform for a whole range of different set of problems that can be solved. And so it's interesting to see how businesses are being built here in the region, triggered by unique problems you have here. In this particular case, a natural disaster, where then the knowledge of that actually gets transported into building a very successful business over time. So yeah, I'm always interested to meet those kind of customers, because they always surprise me. The way that they're innovative, the way that they can focus on the products. And that's actually what we try to achieve with AWS from the outset. When we built AWS originally, it was really focused on those companies that needed to sort of scale up to become big in the world, and not having to focus then on buying hardware and managing hardware and things like that. So these companies are able to focus exactly on their unique product and don't need to worry about the infrastructure that sits underneath there. And that's it. I expect that with us bringing the region here to Malaysia, that we'll see an even further increase on the number of startups being built. There was a very interesting paper not that terribly long ago in Harvard Business Review that actually claims that AWS is the cause of a 4x explosion in the number of startups. Before that, if you were a young startup with a brilliant idea, you basically needed to go to an investor. And not necessarily for your product, but because you had to buy hardware. And you had to hire people that manage the hardware. And that has nothing to do with your unique problem that you try to solve. And so with the rise of AWS, you no longer needed to make this kind of investments. Before that, you needed millions of dollars. Now just 50,000 and a box of ramen is sufficient to survive. And really make use, AWS is really sort of, according to this news article, really triggered this explosion in the number of startups. So I expect that we will see that happening here in Malaysia as well, because having this capacity locally allows you to move really fast and focus on the product.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, AWS doesn't just provide the hardware or the technology, but also I think to build that ecosystem that we are seeing this today at we are at ASB for the AWS Startup Day. And talk to us about what excites you. When you meet with young entrepreneurs, what gets you going?
Well, I think many things. Of course, I'm a technologist, so I often first and foremost get excited by sort of how they are building it. But what really hits home for me is that I see that many of these businesses, they're not necessarily looking to become the world's next unicorn. They're looking to solve hard problems and have a good business at the same time. And so I've seen that sort of across the region. And a number of years ago, I actually started making a video series called Now Go Build to highlight these young businesses that are solving really hard problems and really trying to make a good business at the same time. I think the first episode in that whole business was a company called Hara from Jakarta, who gives smallholder farmers an identity so that they no longer need to go to loan sharks. And banks actually are eager to get involved in that, because all these microloans have a 100% repay rate. It completely changes the field for smallholder farmers. No longer they need to pay 40% interest to these loan sharks. And just really creating that data, and actually where banks and insurance companies and government organizations are willing to pay for, the farmers don't pay. The farmers only benefit. And so that kind of tenacity in trying to solve these hard problems, which these days, if you're a company, if you're a young bunch of engineers that really want to make some money, go write spam filters, or things like that. Some of our best minds go into those kind of things, which are kind of irrelevant compared to the really hard problems that
and
are in this world.
And you really drove home the point about the importance of AI for good in your presentation at KL20 Summit. But right now, the hype is all about Gen AI, large language models. Do you think sometimes maybe we are focusing a bit too much on the shiny new thing, and maybe not enough on supporting existing tech that are really doing really good work on the ground? Yeah,
there's this famous quote. John McCarthy is one of the founders of this the whole AI movement in the 1950s, by the way, already. And John McCarthy made this famous quote that says, as soon as it works, we don't call it AI anymore. Yeah, and that is mostly because all of these companies are, especially the companies that we're talking to in the Now Go Build series and the startups running on AWS, really are just making use of AI as a tool. And we basically have worked for 25 years on building these kind of tools, and they work really well. It's object detection, video recognition, sentiment analysis, text-to-speech, speech-to-text, all these kind of things that work really well. If you have for example, a personal voice assistant in your house, if you have an Alexa or any of these other devices, all of that is AI. It's just that it doesn't look on the outside like AI, and it's fine. I think we're in a new, there's been a number of phases in terms of AI over time. Large language models, foundational models are just the next step in that. There's a bit of a difference in that, because where the old models are really traditional programming models, you have things like APIs and stuff like that. The newer generations of AI have natural text as an interface, and that makes it accessible for many more people. And in terms of Amazon and AWS, first of all, if you've been an Amazon customer, you've been exposed to AI for the past 25 years. You just didn't know it. Yeah. Similarities, recommendations, reviews, quality of reviews, but also things in the back end, like fraud protection. Or if you look at our warehouses, our fulfillment centers, as we call them, we have 175 around the world. Each warehouse has about 20 to 30,000 robots in it. That's all driven by AI. We don't talk about it, we don't call it AI, it's just robotics. Yeah? And mostly because it is technology that works. And what I see around the world, for example, companies like Hara are using that to mine their data for unique insights. Companies in, for example, in the fishing space to grow many more protein, many more fish, are using video recognition to track sort of the growth of those feeds. And all of those are technologies that have been in existence for the past 10, 20 years and work really well. I think what has changed recently, of course, is that this technology got released to the general public at first, and sort of immediately, of course, and without any much education. People didn't really know what sat behind it. And I always jokingly call it like we're all amazed about this dancing bear. Yeah, we're amazed that it can dance. We don't really look whether it dances well or not. Yeah. And so I think these are the first steps in technology that will have tremendous impact in the future, but we're on the first steps of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and especially I think certainly the word AI comes in everybody's mind because this technology was released to the general public. AWS is a little bit of a different company. It's not a consumer-based company. It's a company that helps other businesses be successful in this space. And we've always focused on that. So our capabilities in generative AI, we've built them for other companies to fine-tune with. So you won't see us play in this public space of chatbots and things like that, but we really focus on helping our customers, businesses, be successful. And today here, for example, at the AWS Startup Day here, we have a range of number of educational sessions where we're really helping young businesses figure out where is this technology good for their particular business. And it's one of the technologies in the toolbox. Yeah, there's what I would call the AI that really works already. They have the Gen AI, but we have many other technologies in terms of data analytics, in terms of IoT, in terms of mobile development. All of these where we spend a lot of effort in training people. And especially in the sort of the newer forms of AI, everybody's looking for education. And I think we're putting a lot of effort into really making sure. I think we've trained in Southeast Asia well over 100,000 people by now in AI. And as such, everybody wants to get educated. We have all these educational programs around it, making sure that everybody can just up their game to really be a good engineer or a good entrepreneur in this space and knowing exactly what this technology can do.
Now, for someone who has observed the evolution of technology, especially in building Amazon for the past 20 years, how has the implosion of AI, Gen AI, particularly large language models, how has it changed your job day to day as a CTO? What do you look at to give you guidance on what to invest in, what to take seriously, where to put money in, your energy?
Well, one advantage, of course, that we have at Amazon is that even though we look at a retailer sometimes, we are a technology company that actually happens to do retail. And when Jeff Bezos started the company, he wasn't interested in actually building a bookshop. He just looked for something which you could do on the internet you couldn't do anywhere else, like having a bookshop with all the books in the world in it. And as such, but to do that, we had to build our own technology. Because operating at Amazon scale is just beyond any commercial technology that you can buy. So if I think about the future, we really are inventing the future at Amazon. And so what I see is how can we help our customers, both in retail as well as in technology, be successful here. Now, for example, let me give you a small example. We have some mom and pop shops that sell on Amazon. After all, 60% of the packages shipped on Amazon during Christmas last year were from third parties, not necessarily Amazon. So we help mom and pop shops actually make sure that the right caption appears underneath of images, or the right way to talk to your customers. Or some of our larger third parties, for example, they may already have their own website with hundreds of products on it. We build an AI tool for them just to point to the website and then populate all the products on Amazon itself. And one of the areas where we've been using AI for a long time already is in fraud protection. For example, we literally sit on billions and billions of orders in Amazon, and we know which ones were fraudulent after the fact. But you can build a model out of that when a new order comes in, you give it a score. The likelihood, and if it meets the bar of, let's say, 95% likelihood, you still give it to a human to investigate. Now remember, AI doesn't make decisions for you. We make the decisions. AI predicts. And for example, with fraud protection to protect our customers, but also, for example, and it's a big deal, I think, in the past few years, is how to use AI to avoid counterfeit goods to appear on our site, because that's a really bad customer experience for them. And so, given it that the large data sets that Amazon have, and about the number of products, about orders, about sort of preferences of customers, we can build these models to help them make better buying decisions and avoid fraud, avoid buying counterfeit goods and things like that. So, you know, there's lots of practical solutions in this world that we really want to make sure that we can apply this technology to. Everybody is sort of trying to figure out what is the best way to apply these new AI technologies. So for us, it was important to sort of, let's how to say, make sure that we democratize access to as many models as possible. We're not like some of the other cloud providers that only have one model that they provide their customers with. You know, with us, you can find Claude from Anthropic, all the way to models that we've built ourselves, a number of the open source models. For example, you know, the Falcon model, which is the largest open source model, is developed in Abu Dhabi. In SageMaker, one of our other interfaces, there's an LLM called Sea Lion, which was developed in Singapore on top of AWS, but actually is based on data from 11 different languages here in Southeast Asia. So it's become a culturally aware LLM. So these are all things that we're working on to make sure that our customers can start to experiment with a safe environment where they can experiment in. A very important part in all of that is a system called fine-tuning. So these models, like one language models, become a foundation where our customers can extend this model with their own data. And what customers then really are very important for them is security and privacy. That data, the unique data for their company, should not sort of, for some reason, flow into somewhere else. You know, always jokingly said, in this environment, Coca-Cola and Pepsi can sit next to each other, both have their unique LLMs, by fine-tuning them, and they should not be afraid that that data flows into their competitors.
Can I just pick your point earlier? You mentioned about AI becoming culturally aware.
Yep.
Now that's really, really interesting, because when we talk about AI, training data for AI, large language models, tend to be more Western US-centric, right? And how do you assess the cultural sensitivity of large language models when the data being used are in some ways a bit biased?
Well, you know, every year I do this set of predictions, and this is one of the biggest challenges I think we are about to solve. I mean, I just mentioned Sea Lion, for example, that really is one of the first Southeast Asian models that really incorporated local knowledge. And if imagine you would have a review of that famous poet's work in one of the large Western LLMs, you will get a very different review or a very different summary of that than a model that is trained on local text. And I think it is, and that seems like sort of, you know, a little bit of is that really important? Yes, because it actually also embodies knowledge, and it embodies a way of living. It embodies sort of political differences that are unique for here. I think the development of these models is crucial, because we need to avoid that this new technology only benefits Western companies or cultures. In essence, quite a few of these newer models, these bigger models, are all trained on something called Common Crawl, which is a massive data set of all web data and things like that, which is predominantly English. And inside these large language models, things are actually English. So what a large language model is basically it takes a word, have a very long factor with it saying, well, if that's in the context of it, it probably means this, which means that if this is a table, and in the context is probably a glass or a plate or a chair, it's probably a physical table. If columns and rows are in the context of it, it's probably a database table or an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. So it still is language inside. So what we've seen is that the first steps were, we give them a different language interface. But what happens is you translate Malay into English, then run the English queries on these LLMs, and then translate it back into Malay again. That is not a cultural, cultural reference. It's still Western.
So question is.
And so we are building those.
Okay.
Sea Line is one of those. You mentioned Falcon from Abu Dhabi. That's also trained not necessarily on Western text, but mostly on Arab text. And we recently, for example, ran what's called a hackathon with a number of our customers in Japan, and they built 15 independent LLMs trained on Japanese text. Important is that you know, if we want to make sure that the whole world can benefit from these kind of technologies, we need to democratize the access to it and make sure that they're available not only in the local language, but in the local context, in the local culture. Our goal is to democratize access to this technology, to make sure that everyone has an equal play. We do not want to have more inequality in the digital workspace because most of these investments originally have been made in the US, but everybody needs to be able to benefit from this.
Suppose my next question, do you think this LLMs could be able to capture these cultural nuances and adapt and to deliver actually locally relevant solutions? I think that's what we're trying to get at, right?
Absolutely, that's what we want. Absolutely, and you know, I think it is absolutely important. There are so many nuances, not just in language itself, but the meaning of words and the meaning of languages. I always make a sort of a joke. We as humans are extremely good in sort of understanding cultural sensitivities. If you would go to Greece, you go to a wedding, and people are smashing plates on the ground, you probably already knew that. Yeah, but then you see people spitting on the dress of the bride. And you probably are going to think, you're not going to think, oh, they hate her. No, this must be something else. And it's a meaning of good luck to the bride. You know, that is something that we as humans immediately are able to figure out. Yeah? And if you don't incorporate that sort of cultural knowledge and this cultural embodiment in these systems, it doesn't come out either. You know, whatever you put into these models is actually going to come out. It's not going to make things up. Well, it doesn't know often to say, some of these chatbots don't know how to say, I don't know. They will make something up.
Yes.
You know, it's called hallucinations. And it's okay. You know, and I think this number of hallucinations are really going down because the data sets are becoming more extensive. But I actually like these hallucinations in these consumer ones because it forces you to still do critical thinking. The fact that we have these technologies that can be amazing in helping you also means you still need to use your brain. I mean, this thing doesn't go away. This thing is way more powerful than any technology that we've ever built, or maybe even will ever build. Yeah, and as such, I think that it's crucial that we continue to keep the human at the center of technology and don't let technology take over what we as humans are capable of.
That's very well put. Rona, just in a couple of minutes that we have left, I do want to talk to you on a personal level because it's rare that we have someone like you here in Malaysia. What excites you the most as CTO of a global tech giant like Amazon? And also conversely, what keeps you on your toes?
What keeps me on my toes? Well, the last one's easier. What keeps me on my toes is security.
Okay.
Making sure that our customers are being kept secure. Because that's what they expect of us. They trust us with the data, and whether that's a business like in AWS, or whether it's consumers in retail, or people using our healthcare services, or people using Alexa, people should be assured that we take their privacy and security as the topmost priority. And it's not that it keeps me up at night, because we have amazing people working on these issues and continuously try to stay ahead of whether it's accidents or whether it is bad actors in this world. You know, I recently just saw this news report on that the bad actors are now using QR codes to put out somewhere. And remember, you still need to use your brain. You may scan the QR code. You should still look at the link that you're seeing there. It may not be the menu of the restaurant that you're sitting in. So for me, protecting our customers remains our number one priority and will be forever our number one priority. It's also our number one investment area. Because keeping our customers secure is the best thing that we can offer them. Now, what excites me is, you know, after 20 years of technology, there's a few areas where I'm really happy that we're making progress. One of those areas is sustainability. Yeah, if I look at, I mean, often these companies are called hyperscalers, the ones that have, I mean, we now have 33 regions around the world, each consists of multiple data centers. And often it's being seen as that sort of, you know, is that really sustainable? Well, to be honest, the kind of investment in innovations that we can do in our data centers to make them as sustainable as possible is something that individual companies can't do. So by moving your workloads out of their own data centers that they may have here or co-locations here in Malaysia into the new region, immediately reduces their carbon footprint by 80%. Yeah? So those are the things that I think are really important for us to work on. Now, these are often things we do in our data centers that we don't put press releases out on. Yeah. It's a continuous effort to make sure that we are a very good steward of this earth. We are the world's largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy. We run 500 projects at this moment around the world to do solar and wind powering, and most importantly, we invest a lot in the research of how to store that energy so we can use that moments when the sun doesn't shine and when the wind doesn't blow. And so that is extremely important for us because we can do this kind of investment. And well, you don't need powering houses with heat here. I think the environment does that by itself. But for example, I recently was in Ireland, and their whole area, a whole neighborhood that's close to our data centers is heated by heat coming out of the data center. So we try to reuse as much as possible of the energy that we're using, but more importantly, moving into our data centers and out of the old-fashioned old data centers will immediately improve the carbon footprint of any of our customers. Now, that kind of impact on the environment, where customers will want to build digital services, but in the most not only cost-effective, but the most sustainable way is definitely something that really makes my heart go faster.
Thank you so much, Werner, for spending some time to talk to me. I really, really appreciate it. And best of luck with the rest of your trip and safe travels to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.